Hello. Well, the rain fell down without my help. But stuff still happened. So what's up? It must be my birthday. It's not my birthday. But it might as well be. There's been a lot of tech lawsuits over the past couple of weeks. Let's talk about them. Lawsuits and general tech oligarchs just kind of eating shit. It's been good. It hasn't been good. Let me have this. First up, we've got a couple of big lawsuits against Google and Meta regarding Instagram and YouTube, and really just the social networks that these companies make in general. Now, there's been a lot of lawsuits against social media companies trying to get at them for the whole making the world a worse place thing, both the whole like disinformation and people posting things they shouldn't be posting and using features of their websites to undress children, stuff like that. But a lot of these lawsuits that have come after social media companies have gotten wrapped up in Section 230, which is essentially this concept that shields social media companies from being responsible for what their users post on their website. The idea being that, like, oh, it was the user, not the company. Like, the company didn't say horrible racist things. A user posted that. And just because the company hosted that horrible racism doesn't mean that they're liable. There's a combination of fear and uncertainty and terror and confusion around Section 230, and largely tech companies just start throwing that around the second that they're targeted by a lawsuit because they're like, oh, if Section 230 goes away, that's the end of social media. Which, I mean, on one hand, good. On the other hand, not really. That's not really what would happen. But on the other hand, like, I'm not saying we should just get rid of Section 230. It would be great if we could kind of rework it, but that's not what's happening here. What's exciting about these lawsuits is that they are not Section 230. They are instead going after these companies for making bad products. And not just like a product that doesn't work, like a product that is actively harmful. So one lawsuit found that apps like Instagram and YouTube are intentionally designed to be addictive. They keep you scrolling, they hack your brain, they use neuroscience to get you, right? And that's true. We've known that for a long time. The infinite scrolling feed is specifically so that you don't leave the app. You know, if it wasn't an infinitely scrolling feed, then you would get to the bottom of a page and you would have a button to click to go to the next page. And every time that you're given the option to go to the next page, you are implicitly given the option to stop. But if you just keep scrolling and there's never a break, you're not going to be prompted for that. Now, infinite scrolling feeds themselves are not the problem here. The problem here has a whole lot more to do with designing algorithms to pull people in and manipulate them so that they'll spend more time on the platform so they can sell more ads. And so a court found that, yes, the design of these apps are intentionally done with malice, like to fuck with people for money. The other lawsuit is also about Meta, but it has more to do with decision-making within Meta intentionally choosing to design their products in a dangerous way. It came out in court that there's a whole bunch of decision-making going on behind the scenes at Meta that basically can summarize to don't put that protection in place because we might not make as much money. That second lawsuit was brought by the New Mexico Department of Justice. Here is a quote from their press release after they won the lawsuit. Quote, "The evidence presented at trial, which included internal Meta documents and testimony from former Meta employees, law enforcement officials, and New Mexico educators, established that Meta's design features enabled pedophiles and predators to engage in child sexual exploitation on Meta's platforms. Evidence from those witnesses and other industry experts also demonstrated that Meta intentionally designs its platforms to addict young people and, contrary to Meta's public commitments, expose them to dangerous content related to eating disorders and self-harm." The reason I brought up Section 230 at the outset here is because these cases don't have anything to do with them, and that is a pivot from what we've seen so far. A lot of these tech companies have just brushed off these lawsuits, but now we've learned that giants can bleed. More lawsuits like this can easily be lobbed at them. These were civil suits paying out to individual plaintiffs. So we are about to see a whole lot more of these and possibly a whole lot more lawsuits that are going after these companies from other angles. Because after years and years of these companies hosting disinformation and worse, having algorithms that cause disinformation to get increased engagement artificially, it feels like maybe we need to do something. And it feels like maybe if you are a social media company, you should be somewhat responsible for the impact that you are having on society. But let's talk about Elon Musk, who also got a few defeats recently. Quick background, Elon Musk runs a porn site called Twitter, and Twitter is an interesting porn site because it's uniquely labeled as not a porn site in the app stores. This is despite Elon Musk's porn website having an AI on it that can undress people, including children. So there's been that whole thing. I've talked about that a few times, and they've been hit by a lot of lawsuits for it, because obviously. But now Amsterdam is coming out swinging as Dutch officials have hit Musk with an order saying, stop that. They're basically saying you can't keep having this thing be a thing while operating here. And so for every day that you continue hosting a robot that can undress children, we're going to fine you. This comes just as Musk also had one of his lawsuits from 2024 thrown out of court. Back in 2024, after he took over Twitter, a bunch of advertisers pulled out of advertising because, again, obviously, he did that whole thing where he just changed what check marks are, and then it was chaos for these companies. So they were like, we're not going to do this anymore. To which Musk was like, you all are doing an organized boycott against me, and that's illegal somehow. So he filed a lawsuit against advertisers that were not advertising on his platform anymore, and it just got thrown out in court because, say it with me, obviously. What's nice is that also the judge did not mince words. Quote, the very nature of the alleged conspiracy does not state an antitrust claim, and the court therefore has no qualm dismissing with prejudice. I'll end by saying that every single founder of Elon Musk's AI company has left, except for him. But he calls it a restructuring. Thank you for being here. I really like doing what I do, and I try to do it without having sponsored content segments. So if you like what I do and you want to keep a community supported, you can head to isupport.dev and you can find links to my Patreon, my Ko-Fi, and other ways to support what I'm doing. If you want to support me, but you can't do so financially, that's no problem. Just commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing my work, telling people about my stuff. It really, really does help. So thank you so much. Let's move on. I'm going to do my best Antimatter impersonation. I went across the room, much like Antimatter went across a parking lot. Backing up, scientists at CERN have managed to contain antimatter and put it on a truck and drive it across a parking lot. Not unlike a terrified father taking his son to the school parking lot to learn how to parallel park. Sorry, Dad. But instead of screaming, hit the brake, these scientists were putting antimatter onto a truck for shipping. CERN boys have been playing around with antimatter for a little while now, and antimatter is essentially the opposite of matter. So you know matter, like the stuff, like all of it? When the Big Bang happened, there was a lot of matter, but there was also supposedly an equal amount of antimatter. Think of it like the positive and negative ends of a magnet, sort of like they cancel each other out. That's not how magnets work. Point being, it's a mysterious thing that we don't fully understand, but it's essentially matter reverse. Like the electrical charges are inverted. So where there's protons, there are also antiprotons. And scientists at CERN have managed to capture antiprotons and put them on a truck. Why are they putting them on a truck? Because antiprotons also want to live that trucker life. The reality is that if you want to capture an antiproton, you don't just kind of like take a butterfly net and swing it around. You need equipment, like capital E equipment, but like 40 capital E's. It's big equipment, and it causes this like magnetic fluctuation that makes it so it's pretty difficult to then inspect the actual antiprotons because it's like pretty small, and they need to use really precise instruments to do any kind of measurements on these antiprotons, and they can't really use those instruments in the same place that they capture the antiprotons. But if they could put them on a truck, wave goodbye, as it goes off to another location, they could potentially do deeper research. I volunteer my bathroom. I don't mind having antiprotons there, and there's not a whole lot of magnetic fluctuations. Anyway, scientists put a thing in a truck and drove it across a parking lot, but in a cool way is what I'm getting at. Let's talk about Cash App, which is the app that you use to hack the director of the FBI. A hacktivist group called Handala recently hacked Kash Patel, the head of the FBI in the United States. They broke into his personal email, like a Gmail account, and so they got access to the things you would get access to from a Gmail account, which is a lot. They've released some of the stuff, some of his like personal photos, documents. They released his resume with his like phone number and address on it. I will say I have seen posts about how they outed his porn account. I have not been able to verify that. That seems more like a viral fake thing than reality, but I'm sure there's plenty of embarrassing shit. Actually, there is plenty of embarrassing shit. He's the director of the FBI and got hacked because he wasn't using two-factor authentication on his Google account. Now, Hamdallah is not some random group of hackers that are in their basement just doing this for funsies. They are a state-aligned group. They're sort of like a sub-hacker group that works with a larger group called Void Manticore that's associated with Iranian military intelligence. This is pretty directly the Iranian military hacking the head of the FBI, which is deeply embarrassing. So yeah, head of the FBI had his personal email hacked. In a normal world, that would be the end of the entire administration. But in this world, we call that Friday. Let's talk about gaming and why it's expensive. Nintendo and Sony just both made pretty big price adjustment announcements, and people aren't really happy about either. Actually, people are really fucking mad about both. We'll start with Sony, who announced a price hike for the entirety of the PlayStation 5 family. There's 4 sort of PS5 products, the PS5 with and without the disc drive, then the PS5 Pro, and then the PlayStation Portal, which is like a sort of handheld streaming device. In a press release, Sony announced that they are making a few strategic adjustments, and here are the new prices. The base PS5 is going up $100 and will now cost $650 USD. The PlayStation 5 without the disc drive is also going up $100 and will now be $600. The PS5 Pro is going up $150 and will now cost $900 dues. And the PS Portal is going up $50 to $250, which is actually less than I thought it cost originally. So I hope you didn't want a PlayStation, or if you did, you need to get one like now, or if you have money, who cares? But yeah, just straight up hiking up them prices. And they did this again last year as well. So it's not like this was the first price hike since this generation came out. But it does appear to be the biggest, at least for one given console. Nintendo, on the other hand, they actually reduced prices a bit. Shouldn't people be happy? They're not happy. I'm not particularly happy either, but my goodness, people are not happy. When the Nintendo Switch 2 was announced, the price was shocking for a lot of people, like $450 for the base console, and then games could be as much as $90. What's more, they announced that the digital and physical versions of games would cost the same. So even if you weren't getting the physical version, which has the cartridge and the box and the art and everything, and you could sell it back to a store, give it to your friend or whatever, it's the same price as the digital download, which is just goes on your console. So people are like, okay, what's going on here? Like, why is this happening? And why is everything so expensive? And why can't I even get a little bit of a discount if I get the digital, more restrictive version of the games? Rejoice. You can now, with a huge asterisk. Nintendo has announced in very Nintendo fashion that they will, quote, have an MSRP that is different from physical versions for digital versions. Man, Nintendo and trying to say anything normally. It's just not happening. Ultimately, it looks like for Nintendo first-party games that Nintendo is publishing, the digital version might be about $10 less, usually. Like I said, asterisks. While this is all happening, the backdrop is that the AI data center boom is sucking up all the chips in the room, even the sour cream and onion. Tech companies are buying up like every chip in existence, and they're looking for memory and storage like RAM and SSDs. And that is driving the price of computers way up. And guess what's a computer? Video game consoles. And computers. We're seeing the same thing with Valve's Steam Machine, which was a thing they announced that was going to be a sort of mass market, entry-level PC gaming console kind of thing. Sort of like a console version of a Steam Deck. It's supposed to be affordable with capable parts, and now it is delayed and the price is unknown again because these parts are just through the roof. So it's likely that Sony's changes are because of that, and Nintendo's change of driving the digital price down a little bit is probably because the Switch cartridges are that kind of chip that's currently expensive. So if they're reducing the digital price a bit, they're probably trying to steer people towards the digital version of games so they don't have to spend as much money to make the manufactured physical version. But people aren't particularly thrilled either way. I'm still paying like $80. Lightning round. In Iran, it sure looks like the US is about to send in ground troops as 3,500 US military service members have arrived in the region. The other indicator of imminent boots on the ground is that the Trump administration has kept saying that they're not going to do that. Here's the weather. Over the weekend, there was another No Kings protest, and at time of recording, I don't have an actual estimation, but it looks as though the participation was in the millions. OpenAI's generated AI video-only social network Sora has been shut down. along with most of their access to video generation stuff. Turns out no one gave a shit. Speaking of shutting down obviously bad ideas, Meta has shut down the metaverse. They shut down Horizon Worlds, which was their premier metaverse world. You know, the thing that they changed their entire company's name about? Massive shock. Recently, Trump made a post that caused the oil market to fluctuate, and right before that post, there was a ton of trading in the oil market. Probably nothing. And finally for today, a Secret Service member who was assigned to detail Jill Biden seems to have accidentally shot himself in the leg. As far as I can tell, there was not a security threat. Just kind of bored, I guess. I can think of better uses of my time than shooting myself in the leg, though, but whatever. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you are going to do to entertain yourself while you're a Secret Service member. My name is Endeavorance. We'll talk again soon. Take care and be well.